Hi, and welcome to the Life of Jamie and More podcast. I'm doing this podcast as a dad about raising my son who has special needs. It has real life challenges for me, and while I want to share mine, I really want to offer space to other dads to do the same. So, let's get into one right now. Hi, welcome to the first podcast about life with Jamie and more. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this first podcast. I really hope that it does live up to any expectation, if you have any expectation. I know I have expectation about this podcast, and I have to challenge myself to make sure that, it's okay, and I'm okay with it. All right, so let's get into it. So why am I doing this podcast? And what's the story behind the why? Okay, so my son, he's Jamie. He is 14 years old. He will turn 15 years old next year. He was born with Down syndrome. And that happened, obviously, 14 years ago, back in 2008. And I remember having him born on that day. And I remember standing outside, calling my parents and telling them that he had Down syndrome. And I remember crying. And I remember crying down the phone and not really kind of knowing why I was crying. I was crying because I was sad. Thinking about it now, I was sad. I was sad because I was entering into a zone, a world, which I didn't know. And while normally when we enter into parenting, we don't know what's going on, right? We kind of have no idea. We're just going with the flow. We're trying to navigate literally from day one. So here I am, day one, hour one, and I've been thrown this ball of, okay, your son has Down syndrome. And I don't know what it is. I literally don't know what it is. I know it's a name. Is it a condition? Is it a name? I don't know. And so I'm just like, if a doctor turns around and gives your son or your child a diagnosis within the first couple of hours, it's like it doesn't really sink in. All you know is you just going towards whole negative thoughts. That's how I kind of went. I went to these negative thoughts, right? So that was, I think, that was when it all started for me. And as I fast forward to now, well, let's fast forward 11 years. Let's go forward 11 years because that's a crucial part of also why I'm doing this podcast. Because for 11 years, I didn't know that I had trauma. I had trauma inside from having Jamie born with Down syndrome. And as a man, I typically, for me, didn't know how to deal with that. And I didn't even know I had the trauma. That was the wild thing. I didn't even know I had that in me from day one. Jamie went through like operations. He had, within the first few hours of him being alive, he had a operation, which meant that he was born with no anus. So I'm going to spare you the details on that, but basically they had to do an operation pretty quickly. So that was the first operation. He also had holes in his heart. He had 2 holes in his heart. And as he kind of went through months, he had these operations. Of course, goes through a million and one checkups. And all these take tolls on us as parents, and it took tolls on me as a dad, right? But I didn't even really think they were tolls. I didn't even think that it was something that was affecting me kind of mentally, which obviously would affect me kind of physically as well as we kind of go down the line. So he had all these operations, one after another, just really intense, stressful times. And I am so sure that there are guys out there who have been through this. I guarantee it. And I think that this is why I'm doing this, because I want guys to know that they are not alone. Because for many, many years, and for 11 years or just over 11 years, is that I felt that I was so alone in this world with a child who was Down syndrome. I was living in Japan, still am living in Japan, and I did not understand what was going on. My wife is amazing. She was obviously translating everything back to me, so I was able to understand everything, and that was immensely helpful. So I was very privileged to be in this conversation, in this situation. So for 11 years, I didn't know what was going on. I was just kind of going with the flow and not really thinking about me as to who I am and what to do to look after me. That's pretty important. I didn't look after myself, really. It was, I'm able to look back on this in hindsight, of course, because generally that's how it works. But I'm doing this so I can allow guys to perhaps, it might allow them to see inside themselves a little bit more and realize that, hey, we're human. We are guys. We don't, we have emotions. We have feelings. We may have trauma. We may have grief. We don't quite know what we have. And I'm still learning. And I don't have all the answers. And I make mistakes. So 3 years ago, I was rushed to hospital in an ambulance. Really scary. I think actually the scariest part was, there were two scary things. When I was walking on the road, I felt like I was having it was almost like blood was kind of running up to my head. And it was coming up kind of slowly but quickly. It was a very weird feeling. So I had, I was walking with my wife and also 2 students of mine. And we were walking to lunch, actually. We were walking to lunch. And I felt this feeling that all this kind of pressure, all this, like, something was kind of coming up through my body, and it got to like my kind of neck, and then made its way up to my ears, and then I was like, something's going to happen. Something is going to happen to me when it gets to the top of my head. And I turned around and I grabbed hold of my student's shoulder, who was on my right-hand side. And I just grabbed hold of it, and it allowed me to, right at that moment of it, kind of it peaked. It peaked. And I was like, it was like it was a dizzy. It was like I went really dizzy for a split second. I don't know whether I actually, I don't think I blacked out. I don't think so. But anyway, so I was like, everyone's like, geez, man, are you all right? You were going, I'm like, yeah, I think I'm just hungry. Classic me. Like, I think I'm just hungry. I haven't had lunch yet, a little bit late. I think I just need some food in me. So I'm like, let's go have dinner. Let's go have lunch. Sorry, let's get some food in me. I think I'll feel better after this. So we're sitting down eating, and then, anyway, the discussion kind of goes on, and I'm like, and I kind of start to feel like my wife is asking me questions about how I feel, and I'm like, oh my arms kind of feel a little bit kind of strange. and so anyway, so there was this talk about, okay, maybe we need to call the doctor and we need to find out a little bit more. So, anyway, cut a long story short here, because we ended up, an ambulance was called, and I was put into the ambulance, and I lay down in the ambulance, and it's the first time I've ever laid down in an ambulance. I've been in an ambulance a few times with Jamie and Joshua, my youngest, but I had never been lying down in an ambulance that I can remember on my own. And Junka was with me, my wife with me, and it was goddamn terrifying, because I didn't know what the hell was going on with me, and there was possible talk that it could actually be a mild stroke. And that's pretty scary. And that is a pretty scary thought to have. And I was, that was not what I envisaged myself doing. And at this age, I was about just over 40. So we go to the hospital, run all the tests, and trying to, blood test, bang, 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 there it is. At the end of it, we're going to A&E, by the way. So I'm in a bed, and the doctor comes over, and he says, how you feeling? I'm like, I kind of feel all right. I don't know, I don't feel 100%. I couldn't quite put the finger on what it was, how I felt. And he said, okay, well, all your results are pretty good. He said, I think you just need to relax more. You need to rest more. I think he said rest more. You need to rest. And I remember thinking, what does he mean rest? I sleep. Like everyone else, we sleep. And I sleep pretty good. So I'm like, well, I don't get that. That is not a concept that I get. Resting. But you know what? He was right. He was right. And I learnt from that point onwards, that I needed to rest. I needed to listen to my body telling me what the hell was going on inside. And all this was related to so many things, including the grief and the trauma of Jamie being born with Down syndrome, combined with work, combined with just the pressure of being a dad, of having these, we put these expectations on ourselves, actually. People don't put them on us. I feel that, we put them on ourselves. So those things really compounded. And while I think, I had good times. In those 11 years, I had good times. Don't get me wrong. I had holidays here, holidays there. We had great stuff. But I also think, there are moments where I just think, geez, man, my body was telling me, you need to take care of yourself. You need to, do something. And I didn't know what it meant. And I remember there was one moment I was taking the kids to school in the car, and I remember driving, and I turned the corner at the lights, and I was having a really rough morning. I remember this is before I was rushed to hospital. I was driving my van and taking the kids to school, and I had this feeling that I was almost my body. I was having this I was not fully in control of my body. It was like my head was on my shoulders, but it wasn't controlling my body. And that lasted for probably about, I don't know, but it felt like a long time. And when you're driving a car, that's pretty dangerous. And I just kept driving, and I ignored it. And I can think back now to that situation where that was my body telling me to sort it out It was giving me signs, so many of these signs of just to look at who I was and what I was doing. And it was trying to tell me that I needed to rest. That was clearly something it was telling me to do, but it needed me to start to look after myself more, mentally, physically, all these things. So this podcast is to put it out there for the guys, to anyone, really, but the guys who I have experience of raising a child with my wonderful wife, who is and he's disabled. He's special needs. He needs help. He needs a lot of help. He needs a lot of time. He takes time to do things, and I have my frustrations with that. It's frustrations that I need to work through. But I think it's important that I can't keep these frustrations inside. I need to be able to process them and work through them, because when we do that, and when I do that, is that good things happen. I'm able to work out that actually, okay, maybe I can do something to help me avoid feeling like that. I don't have all the answers. Again, I don't have all the answers, but I want to be a voice. I want to be a voice for dads, fathers, who feel sometimes that, it's just getting so much. And I do feel that. I do feel that. I'm not going to lie. I feel I have days, moments in my day. Mornings are really tough, as I said before. Mornings is where I do have that. And even obviously when I'm out and about with Jamie, is I have frustrations. The frustrations are targeted at my son, but actually I need to work on myself as to how I deal with those as a man, as a guy, how I kind of work through those. This podcast is exactly this. And I want to have guys on to talk about these things and for it to be a safe space, because I think it's important. And I've been, over the past 3 years, I've really got into podcasts myself, and I've found some amazing podcasts. And there was a podcast, and there still is a podcast that's really started this whole thing. And I am going to go into that a little bit later on. But I think that for the first episode of this podcast, I'm going to end it here. So this is the first episode out the way. Thank you for listening. I will be putting up a second podcast in a couple of weeks. So take care. Enjoy yourself. Be nice to yourself. That is so important. And what does be nice to yourself look like? You know what? It means going and doing something which is for you. Okay? Which is for you. Doing something for you. It's hard to do sometimes. You've got to give yourself a pass. You've got to give yourself a pass and let yourself do it. Thanks, guys. Be good. Be safe. We'll catch you later. Take it easy.